Welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to talk about the power of retention marketing. So as an agency owner and as an owner of e-com brands myself, I've seen hands-on how important retention marketing is and how big the difference in profit margin are between the brands that only relies on paid ads and the brands that relies on paid ads to acquire new customers and have retention marketing, which is basically email and SMS marketing, to reacquire those customers and turn them into repeat buyers and thereby acquire even cheaper conversions in the long run and thereby increasing their profit margins. So let's get into it. Two brands can run the exact same ads. One prints money, the other bleeds cash, and the only difference is going to be the retention. And as mentioned before, it's based on 5 years of experience and more than 100 million euros in e-com revenue. And yeah, let's get straight into it. So most brands, they bet everything on paid ads. Paid ads, specifically Meta and Google, are one of the key drivers in almost any e-com business today. I'd say, especially if they have been started within the last 7 or 8, maybe even 10 years, then those are the key drivers. But they only work if you actually utilize them correctly. There are two rules that most brands break, and we can go through each of those rules now. So the first rule is paid ads should focus solely on new customers. Every euro that you spend on retargeting a past buyer is a euro that you could have actually have spent finding someone new. So one thing to keep in mind, and if you want to take only two things away from this video, is your paid ads is your acquisition engine, nothing else. So paid ads should only acquire new customers, whereas retention marketing should only acquire repeat customers. That is very simple, and there are exceptions to these two rules. But if you get something away from that video, from this video, those two things are going to be it. So second rule, as mentioned, email and SMS should drive repeat purchases. Your own channels are where the margins actually lives. Flows, campaigns, and segmentation should be doing all of the repeat purchase work, not your ad account. And let's take a quick look at two examples, or one example basically, from a fictional brand that are doing the exact same amount of revenue, basically 100,000 euros, and how the profit margin can look with and without retention marketing. So let's say that the brand A here has a returning customer rate of 15%, which means the basically 85% of revenue is coming from new customers. And then only 15%, i.e. 15,000 euros, is coming from returning customers. In this case, well, that would leave a net profit margin of 12% with an average CAC of 40 euros. Whereas if we look at brand B, which has paid ads and retention working together, whereas 40% of the revenue is coming from returning customers, with the same CAC, now 60% of the revenue is coming from new customers and 40 from repeat customers. The net profit margin is going to be 28K or 28%, basically because we have freed up ad spend, because we don't have to keep running ads towards or we don't need as much new customer revenue to get the same amount of revenue. Of course, we still want to push this to the max so we don't just stay stagnant here. But it's just an example to say, hey, with the same top line revenue, a smarter brand could actually make 16,000 euros more in profit every month. And these two numbers will grow exponentially with each other. So the more new customer revenue, the more returning customer revenue will also increase automatically as long as your repeat customer rate is basically stays the same. So let's look at two mistakes that brands make when it comes to retention, or basically paid ads and retention marketing. The first one is measuring new and repeat customers the same way. So when you look at your revenue, you need to separate new customers from repeat customer revenue to see where it's actually coming from. Because most brands that we have been talking to look at one blended revenue number and miss the fact that new customer acquisition has quietly stalled and therefore not bringing in new customer revenue, which also means they don't have new customers to basically reconvert. So their revenue stays stagnant. So what it actually looks like is if 50% of revenue is coming from repeat customers, then the top line looks healthy. Revenue is flat or slightly up, but you can't scale simply because when you spend more, the number barely moves because new customer acquisition has stalled and you're just spending money to acquire the customers you already have. And you just didn't see it because you're looking at one blended revenue number. Whereas what you need to do instead is actually split the reporting and look at new versus returning customers separately. So it's the only way to see whether paid is actually doing its job and whether retention is actually compounding. The second mistake is ignoring the incremental ROAS or ignoring the incremental customer acquisition cost. So if you don't use incremental ROAS or incremental customer acquisition cost as some of the key metrics, then your blended ROAS hides the fact that you're paying Meta for customers who were going to come and buy from you either way. So what it actually is, if you're not familiar with the incremental models, it's basically Meta's way of showing which purchases came directly from your advertising efforts and which would have come either way through email, organic, direct, or just word of mouth. So it can separate the people that did not come purely because of your ad. So of course, you should stop paying for what you actually get for free, because if you do optimize on your blended ROAS, again, you're just buying customers who were already on their way, and your ad account is just going to take credit because people that are on your newsletter, for example, they are also going to see your retargeting ads or just your ads in general. No matter if you have a retargeting campaign or not, they're going to see the ads because Meta will know these are very interested in your brand because they're on your website more frequently. So your ad account will just take credit, and therefore you can't really look at the blended ROAS. You have to look at the new customer ROAS and the returning customer revenue separately. Okay, so the framework. We want to give each channel one job and measure against that and nothing else. So we want to track new and repeat customer revenue separately. And the way that we do it is we have our paid ads, they should only be or it should only attribute new customers. You're not going to be able to do this directly in the ad account. Of course, you can look at the incremental ROAS, but sometimes it's not only new customers. So the way that we like to do it is just take your Shopify, look at the revenue from new customers and the revenue from repeat customers. And then any revenue that comes from new customers, unless you have a bunch of channels. If you're running a very lean setup, so you have Google and Meta, and then a bit of organic, maybe some influencers here and there. But if you're having a very simple setup, then paid should get kind of attributed for all of those new customers, whereas retention should get attributed all the repeat purchases. So just to sum up what I mentioned here, I've just highlighted 3 important things. So we want different dashboards and different KPIs for each channel. So new customer CAC, blended CAC, and repeat rate each belong in their own view, and paid only gets credit for net new customers, measured on incremental customer acquisition cost, and that number is going to tell you the truth about paid ads. Email and SMS own repeat customers. So it's flows, campaigns, segmentation, and this is where you're going to be seeing the margin. Your profit is going to be higher when you utilize retention marketing correctly. So the result is going to be a cleaner picture of what is actually driving growth, so you can scale what works and cut what doesn't. Higher profit margin because repeat purchases are easier and cheaper to get than new customers, especially once they're on your newsletter. And for example, also if they're subscribed to SMS marketing, those are going to be way, way easier and also cheaper to get because you're not spending any advertising money to acquire them. And paid ads acquires, retention compounds, and if you attribute them separately, you actually see where the real margin lives. And with that, the video is pretty much over, but if you do want us to audit your retention setup, we look at your current repeat customer rate, your flow structure, and where your ad account is overstating its contribution. And then we show you basically all the different areas where you can, 1, improve your paid ads acquisition setup, and 2, we're going to show you how much profit you're actually losing by not utilizing retention marketing correctly. So if that sounds interesting and if you're not growing the way you want right now, go ahead in the link in the description of this video and book a call with me or my team, and we're going to show you exactly where you're bleeding money, where there is chances to scale, and how you can do it profitably. Have a good day.